You said that you think of God as almost like a force. Do you think it's a conscious force? If I sit down and pray to this God, will they hear me?
I honestly could say I don't know, but I know that you'll change. I know that you'll hear yourself.
Okay,
If you
so
can go down to the ocean, Steve, if you can go down to the Pacific Ocean and just be isolated and just pour yourself out for an hour, I guarantee it will change your life. You will be in tears, but no one will see you. And that's the thing. That's why you have to be alone. You cannot do it with any other person. You must do it on your own because there's no Sam Harris meditation waking up app. It's not going to do the same for you as just you alone. And not knowing is part of the point, I think.
but what's that got to do with God? What's me going down to the beach and pouring my heart out, which would get me into my amygdala, it'll get me thinking about, it'll make me emotional. I can imagine, even listening to certain music can make you feel that. What role is God playing in that moment?
Because if God exists, I do believe that he's inside of you and that you can connect with him. Again, you can't detect him with an MRI machine, or you can't detect him with a laser. But, again, it's a big if. I'm not guaranteeing. I'm sorry to disappoint. I'm not that kind of doctor. I can't give you a prescription that'll make you believe. But to have access to it, you have to be open to a communication, right? Imagine you got, an email and you just never respond to it. Like people, remember the movie Interstellar? Have you seen that movie? So, the people on Earth are communicating with the people on, Matthew McConaughey's daughter, and she doesn't know if he's listening. He doesn't, and he knows that but in that sense, he's kind of like this God, like he has knowledge that she doesn't have. But if she doesn't try, maybe she wouldn't, maybe just the aspect of trying, the attribute of trying is what opened her up to that return signal, the communication that she eventually received.
So interesting, because when I asked the question about can God hear me, and if he can hear me, I guess the second question is, can he do anything about what he's hearing? There's so much evidence in the world that he can't hear you and he's not going to do anything about it.
But again, you say that, but like, what if, who knows? If your parents, like there were a lot of the stories in the early Testament are about sterile, barren women that couldn't conceive. From Sarah, Rebecca to Rachel. All these women, they couldn't conceive. They cried out. They prayed. And again, women are closer to God in many ways because they contain life within them. Again, in what sense are you not already the recipient of the beneficence of something that we just don't understand? Like
potentially, yeah. But when I asked this question about like, if I pray, is it going to influence my outcomes in any way? There's a natural disaster.
I don't believe it does. I don't believe it does for the reason I said before. Like people were praying here for the Dodgers. I'm sure there were equally virtuous people praying for the Yankees.
That's what I mean. If you think about the scientific method,
that's why I said
we could apply that and say, does prayer work?
Right.
And you could get, I don't know, look through history at the Holocaust or look at some other it's a natural disaster and think, has praying swayed the probabilities of bad things happening to these people?
So I don't believe that at all, but I do believe that fundamentally a person who believes that their actions have some impact will feel at least a sense of gratitude. Let me give you an example. You're familiar in Christianity, people say a blessing before the meal, like grace before a meal. So in Judaism, you do that before the meal, after the meal, sometimes during the meal. But the point is, the more you express gratitude, you cannot be a happy person and be an ingrate.
Yeah.
The more you're grateful for, like the sound of, a song that is just so meaningful to you, the sight of a painting or a sunset, the more that you're, and in Judaism, we say blessings for those things. Like we say, if we see a meteor shower, we say a blessing. It's hard for me as an astronomer, you got to say blessing. A rainbow, another thing. Those are like kind of things we become desensitized to in life. And we just take for granted. When you taste a fine wine or you taste, some delicious food, again, it could just be chlorophyll. Here, Stephen, here's your plate of agar gum. Like, okay, great, I could live. Here's whey powder. That's all you ever get to eat. And you'd be like, this sucks. I know what I had. And if I could only go back to it after I get out, of the situation, I'm going to be so grateful. To me, that gratitude connects to the ultimate source of that provided, that we can't understand. It's true. I cannot give you, and I told you, I have problems with prayer because I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to be told I have to say this in this order, stand up, sit down, fast on this day, do this thing, not eat that delicious pink guy with the curly tail. But when you do that, this, the more you're disciplined, the happier your life is. You know, who's more happy? The guy who eats everything he wants, or Jocko? You know, like the person who just gives into all their temptations of alcohol, the person who abstains and elevates what they do. And I think we want to elevate ourselves above the level of the animals.
But I can have all those behaviors of like a gratitude practice. I can have a meditation practice. I go down to the beach. I can do all of those things. And I can still do all of those things without the need of a God.
Oh, sure.
And I'll get all the benefits of those things. I'd get when I express gratitude before I eat, or sometimes when I'm getting on a plane and I touch the plane to remind myself, and I can almost make myself emotional just thinking about how remarkable it is that I get to do some of the things I've been able to do in my life, to the point of like physical emotion.
Yeah.
But without the presence of needing to equate that to a God in any way. So I'm trying to find. I guess I'm searching for where God fits in all of this. Why is a God required? Is it just because I have so many blessings that I should be thankful to someone for these things? Which I do contend with. Like, okay, if you think about how my life has changed in the last 10 years of, you know, from going from someone who was shoplifting pizzas to sitting here and getting to do these, it's remarkable. You start to think you're a little bit in the Truman Show if you think about it too deeply. But and you do feel, you think, who do I thank for this? So you think, do I thank my parents? Like, do I thank myself? So do I thank a God? But is that the reason? It just to be thankful? But then I go, there's a bias there because there's kids in the town in Botswana that I was born in that are still in the town in Botswana that I was born in, and they're not doing so good. So did God not like them? And then if you go, no, God likes both of you, then I go, okay, well then God isn't responsible for this. It was something that I did or my parents did that are responsible for this, so I should thank them. So where does God fit again? And I just go around in these loops and I go, I don't know, are we trying to create a God to make sense of the things we feel and the experiences we have, and the baby that grabs our finger, and the gratitude, and the solar eclipse, and the sunset? Are we trying to give that to someone because it's just so, the awe is just so much? Or did God give that to us?
Well, I mean, it's the perspective that you're bringing is obviously you've thought about this a lot, and obviously your attitude is healthy, and I think that you have, you know, on balance, I think, yeah, obviously living as a good life, even if I'd never say that an atheist can't be a good person or can't be happy or any of these things. The question is, where does it augment and affect your life? Like, for example, I don't know if I would give 10% of my income to charity, before tax income to charity, if it wasn't a commandment in my religion. But I don't feel shame for that. I don't feel like, oh, you needed religion to tell you this. Because again, I'm still searching just as much as I think that you are. I don't feel like as untroubled by the answers of it, right? I don't feel like that not knowing for sure that God exists, which I don't believe is possible anyway, that should be an impediment to me practicing giving charity, being in a community, raising my kids with an appreciation of their history and their culture, and just the contributions of their religion, of your religion, whatever, to the world.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.